Father, Messiah, Holy Spirit be with us. Picking back up on my reading. Father, we'll get to 10 real fast. In the reign of Ahaz, son of Yatham, son of Uzziah, king of Jehudah, King Rezin of Aram, and King Pekah, son of Remaliah of Israel, marched upon Jerusalem to attack it. But they were not able to attack it. Now, when it was reported to the house of David that Aram had allied itself with Ephraim, their hearts and the hearts of their people trembled as trees of the forest sway before a wind. But our Father in heaven said to Isaiah, "Go out with your son, Shear Jashub, to meet with Ahaz at the end of the conduit of the upper pool, by the road of the fuller's field. And say to him, be firm and be calm. Do not be afraid and do not lose heart on account of those two smoking stubs of firebrands, on account of the raging of Rezin and his Arameans and the son of Remaliah, because the Arameans with Ephraim and the son of Remaliah have plotted against you, saying, we will march against Jehudah and invade and conquer it, and we will set up as king in it the son of Tobel. Thus said my father Elohim, it shall not succeed, it shall not come to pass. For the chief city of Aram is Damascus, and the chief of Damascus is Rezin. The chief city of Ephraim is Samaria, and the chief of Samaria is the son of Remaliah. And in another 65 years, Ephraim shall be shattered as a people, if you will not believe, for you cannot be trusted. Our Father in heaven spoke further to Ahaz, ask for a sign from our Father in heaven, your Elohim, anywhere down to Sheol or up to the sky. But Ahaz replied, I will not ask, and I will not test our Father in heaven. Listen, house of David. Isaiah retorted, is it not enough for you to treat men as helpless, that you also treat my Elohim as helpless? Assuredly, my master will give you a sign of his own accord. Look, the young man is with child and about to give birth to a son. Let her name him Emmanuel. By the time he learns to reject the bad and choose the good, people will be feeding on curds and honey. For before the lad knows to reject the bad and choose the good, the ground whose two kings you dread shall be abandoned. Our Father in heaven will cause to come upon you and your people and your ancestral house such days as never came since Ephraim turned away from Yehudah, that self-same king of Assyria. In that day our Father in heaven will whistle to the flies at the ends of the water channels of Mitzrayim, and to the bees in the land of Assyria, and they shall all come and alight in the rugged wadis and in the clefts of the rocks and in all the thorn breaks and in all the watering places. In that day my Father will cut away with the razor that is high beyond the Euphrates with the king of Assyria, the hair of the head and the hair of the legs, and it shall clip off the beard as well. And in that day each man shall save alive a heifer of the herd and 2 animals of the flock. And he shall obtain so much milk that he shall eat curds, that thus everyone who is left in the land shall feed on curds and honey. For in that day every spot where there could stand 1,000 vines with 1,000 shekels of silver shall become a wilderness of thorn bushes and thistles. One will have to go there with bow and arrows, for the country shall be all thorn bushes and thistles. But the perils of thorn bush and thistle shall not spread to any of the hills that could only be tilled with the hoe. And here cattle shall be let loose, and sheep and goats shall tramp about. My Father never said to me, go yourself, get yourself a large sheet and write on it in common script for Maher Shalal Hashbaz, and call reliable witnesses, the priest Uriah and Zechariah, son of Jepariah, to witness for me. I was intimate with the prophetess, and she conceived and bore a son. And our Father in heaven said to me, name him Maher Shalal Hashbaz. For before the boy learns to call father and mother, the wealth of Damascus and the spoils of Samaria and the delights of Rezin and of the son of Remaliah shall be carried off before the king of Assyria. Again, our Father in heaven spoke to me thus, because that people has spurned the gently flowing waters of Siloam, assuredly my Father will bring up against them the mighty massive waters of the Euphrates, the king of Assyria, and all his multitude. It shall rise above all its channels and flow over all its beds and swirl through Jehudah like a flash flood reaching up to the neck. But with us is Elohim, whose wings are spread as wide as your land is broad. Band together, O peoples, you shall be broken. Listen to this, you remotest parts of the earth. Gird yourselves, you shall be broken. Gird yourselves, you shall be broken. Hatch a plot, it shall be foiled. Agree on action, it shall not succeed. For with us is Elohim. For this is what our Father in heaven said to me, when he took me by the hand and charged me not to walk in the path of that people. You must not call conspiracy all that people calls conspiracy, nor revere what it reveres, nor hold it in awe. None but our Father in heaven of hosts shall you account holy. Give reverence to him alone. Hold him alone in awe. He shall be for a sanctuary, a stone men strike against, a rock men stumble over, for the 2 houses of Israel, and a trap and a snare for those who dwell in Jerusalem. The master shall trip over these and shall fall and be injured, and shall fall and be injured, shall be snared and be caught. Bind up the message, share the instruction with my disciples. So I will wait for our Father in heaven, who is hiding his face from the house of Jacob, from the house of Jacob, and I will trust in him. Here stand I, and the children our Father in heaven has given me as signs and portents in Israel from our Father in heaven, the host who dwells on Mount Zion. Now should people say to you, inquire of the ghosts and familiar spirits that chirp and moan, for people may inquire of its divine beings, of the dead on behalf of the living, for instruction and message. Surely for one who speaks thus, there shall be no dawn, and he shall go about it in it. And he shall go about in it wretched and hungry. And when he is hungry, he shall rage and revolt against his king and his divine beings. He may turn his face upward, or he may look below, but behold, distress and darkness with no daybreak, straightness and gloom with no dawn. For if there were to be any break of day for that land, which is in straits, only the former king would have brought a basin to the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, while the later one would have brought honor to the way of the sea, the other side of the Jordan, and Galilee of the nations. The people that walked in darkness have seen a brilliant light. On those who dwell in a land of gloom, light has dawned. You have magnified that nation, have given it great joy. They have rejoiced before you as they rejoice at reaping time, as they exult when dividing spoil, for the yoke that they bore and the stick on their back, the rod of their taskmaster, you have broken as on the day of Midian. Truly all the boots put on to stamp with, and all the garments donned in infamy have been fed to the flames, devoured by fire. For a child has been born to us, a son has been given to us, and authority has settled on his shoulders. His name, he has been named the mighty God is playing grace. The mighty Elohim is playing grace. The eternal Father, a peaceable ruler, in token of abundant authority and of peace without limit. Upon David's throne and kingdom, that it may be firmly established in justice and in equity, now and evermore, and in equity. Now and evermore, the zeal of our Father in heaven of hosts shall bring this to pass. My Father, let loose a word against Jacob, and it fell upon Israel. But all the people noted Ephraim and the inhabitants of Samaria, and arrogance and haughtiness, bricks have fallen, well rebuilt with dressed stone. Sycamores have been felled, but grow cedars instead. So our Father in heaven let the enemies of Rezin triumph over it, and stirred up its foes, Aram from the east, and Philistia from the west, who devoured Israel with greedy mouths. Yet his anger has not turned back, and his arm is outstretched still, for the people has not turned back to him who struck it, and has not sought our Father in heaven of hosts. So our Father in heaven will cut off from Israel head and tail, palm branch and reed in a single day, elders and magnates. Such are the heads, prophets who give false instruction. Such are the tails, that people's leaders have been misleaders, so they that are led have been confused. That is why my Father will not spare their youth, nor show compassion to the orphans and widows. For all are ungodly and wicked, and every mouth speaks impiety. Already wickedness has blazed forth like a fire, devouring thorn and thistle. It has kindled the thickets of the wood, which have turned it to billowing smoke. Yet his anger has not turned back, and his arm is outstretched still. By the fury of our Father in heaven of hosts, the earth was shaken. Next, the people became like devouring fire. No man spared his countrymen. They snatched on the right, but remained hungry, and consumed on the left without being sated. Each devoured the flesh of his own kindred. Manasseh, Ephraim's, and Ephraim's Manasseh's, and both of them against Jehudah. Yet his anger has not turned back, and his arm is outstretched still. Amen. Ha! Those who write out evil writs and compose iniquitous documents to subvert the cause of the poor, to rob of their rights the needy of my people, that widows may be their spoil, and fatherless children their booty. What will you do on the day of punishment, when the calamity comes from afar? To whom will you flee for help? And how will you save your carcasses from collapsing under fellow prisoners, from falling beneath the slain? Yet his anger has not turned back, and his arm is outstretched still. Ha! Assyria wrought of my anger, in whose hand as a staff is my fury. I send him against an ungodly nation. I charge him against a people that provokes me, to take its spoil, and to seize its treasure, and to make it a thing trampled like the mire of the streets. But he has evil plans, his mind harbors evil designs. For he means to destroy, to wipe out nations, not a few. For he thinks, after all, I have kings as my captains. Was Carmel any different from Carchemish, or Hamath from Arpad, or Samaria from Damascus, since I was able to seize the insignificant kingdoms whose images exceeded Jerusalem's and Samaria's? Shall I not do to Jerusalem and her images what I did to Samaria and her idols? But when my master has carried out all his purpose on Mount Zion and at Jerusalem, he will punish the majestic pride and overbearing arrogance of the king of Assyria. For he thought, by the might of my hand have I wrought it by my skill, for I am clever. I have erased the borders of peoples. I have plundered their treasures and exiled their vast populations. I was able to seize like a nest the wealth of my peoples, as one gathers abandoned eggs. So I gathered all the earth. Nothing so much as flapped a wing or opened a mouth to peep. Does an ox boast over him who hews with it, or a saw magnify itself above him who wields it, as though the rod raised him who lifts it, as though the staff lifted the man? Assuredly, the sovereign, our Father in heaven of hosts, will send as a wasting away in its fatness, and under his body shall burn a burning like that of fire, destroying frame and flesh. It shall be like a sick man who pines away. The light of Israel will be fire, and its holy one flame. It will burn and consume its thorns and its thistles in a single day. In the mass of its scrub and its farmland, what trees remain of its scrub shall be so few that a boy may record them. And in that day the remnant of Israel and the escape of the house of Jacob shall lean no more upon him that beats it, but shall lean sincerely on our Father in heaven, the Holy One of Israel. Only a remnant shall return, only a remnant of Jacob, to mighty Elohim. Even if your people or Israel shall be as the sands of the sea, only a remnant of it shall return. Destruction is decreed. Retribution comes like a flood. For my Father, Elohim of hosts, is carrying out a decree of destruction upon all the land. Assuredly, thus said my Father, Elohim of hosts, O my people that dwells in Zion, have no fear of Assyria, who beat you with the rod and wields the staff over you, as did the Mitzrayim. For very soon my wrath will have spent itself, and my anger that was bent on wasting them. Our Father in heaven of hosts will brandish a scourge over him, as when he beat Midian at the rock of Oreb, and will wield a staff as he did over the Egyptians by the sea. And in that day his burden shall drop from your back, and his yoke from your neck. The yoke shall be destroyed because of fatness. He advanced upon Ahath. He proceeded to Migron. At Mishmas he deposited his baggage. They made the crossing. Gibeah is to be our night quarters. Ramah was alarmed. Gibeah of Saul took to flight. Give a shrill cry, O Bath Galim. Hearken, Laisha. Take up the cry. Anath, Madamena ran away. The dwellers of Gibeon sought refuge this same day at Nob. He shall stand and wave his hand. O Mount of fair Zion, O hill of Jerusalem, lo, the sovereign, our Father in heaven of hosts, will hew off the tree crowns with an axe. The tall ones shall be felled, the lofty ones cut down. The thickets of the forest shall be hacked away with iron, and the Lebanon trees shall fall in their majesty. But a shoot shall grow out of the stump of Jesse. But a shoot shall grow out of the stump of Jesse, a twig shall sprout from his stock. The spirit of my Father in heaven shall alight upon him, a spirit of wisdom and insight, a spirit of counsel and valor, a spirit of devotion and reverence for our Father in heaven. He shall sense the truth by his reverence for our Father in heaven. He shall not judge by what his eyes behold, nor decide by what his ears perceive. Then he shall judge the poor with equity, and decide with justice for the lowly of the land. He shall strike down a land with the rod of his mouth, and slay the wicked with the breath of his lips. Justice shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his waist. The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, the leopard lie down with the kid, the calf, the beast of prey, and the fatling together with the little boy to herd them. The cow and the bear shall graze, their young shall lie down together, and the lion like the ox shall eat straw. A babe shall play over a viper's hole, and an infant pass his hand over an adder's den. In all of my sacred mount, nothing evil or vile shall be done, for the land shall be filled with devotion to our Father in heaven, as water covers the sea. In that day the stock of Jesse that has remained standing shall become a standard to peoples. Nations shall seek his counsel, and his abode shall be honored. In that day my Father will apply his hand again to redeeming the other part of his people from Assyria, also from Mitzrayim. Pathros, Nubia, Elam, Shinar, Hamath, and the coastlands. He will hold up a signal to the nations, and assemble the banished of Israel, and gather the dispersed of Jehudah from the four corners of the earth. Then Ephraim's envy shall cease, and Jehudah's harassment shall end. Ephraim shall not envy Jehudah, and Jehudah shall not harass Ephraim. They shall pounce on the back of Philistia to the west, and together plunder the peoples of the east. Edom and Moab shall be subject to them, and the children of Ammon shall obey them. Our Father in heaven will drive the tongue of the Egyptian sea. He will raise his hand over the Euphrates with the might of his wind, and break it into 7 wadis, so that it can be trodden dry shod. Thus there shall be a highway for the other part of his people out of Assyria, such as there was for Israel when it left the land of Mitzrayim, Egypt. In that day you shall say, I give thanks to you, O our Father in heaven. Although you were wroth with me, your wrath has turned back, and you comfort me. Behold, the Elohim who gives me triumph. I am confident, unafraid. For Yah, our Father in heaven, is my strength and might, and he has been my deliverance. Joyfully shall you draw water from the fountains of triumph, and you shall say on that day, praise our Father in heaven, proclaim his name. Make his deeds known among the peoples, declare that his name is exalted. Our Father in heaven, for he has done gloriously. Let this be made known in all the world. O shout for joy, you who dwell in Zion, for great in your midst is the Holy One of Israel. The Babylon pronouncement of prophecy of Isaiah son of Amoz. Babylon pronouncement. Raise a standard upon a bare hill. Cry aloud to them. Wave a hand and let them enter the gates of the nobles. I have summoned my purified guests to execute my wrath. Behold, I have called my stalwarts, my proudly exalted ones. Hark. Then Peter Slaughter has spoken of a sacrificial meal for which the guests were notified to purify themselves ritually. Hark, a tumult of the mountains, as of a mighty force. Hark, an uproar of kingdoms, nations assembling. Our Father in heaven of hosts is mustering a host for war. They come from a distant land, from the end of the sky. Our Father in heaven with the weapons of his wrath to ravage all the earth. How? For the day of our Father in heaven is near. It shall come like havoc from Shaddai. Therefore all hands shall grow limp, and all men's hearts shall sink and overcome by terror. They shall be besieged by pangs and throes. Rife like a woman in travail. They shall gaze at each other in horror. Their faces livid with fright. Lo, the day of our Father in heaven is coming, with pitiless fury and wrath, to make the earth a desolation, to wipe out the sinners upon it. The stars and constellations of heaven shall not give off their light. The sun shall be dark when it rises, and the moon shall diffuse no glow. And I will requite to the world its evil, and to the wicked their iniquity, and I will put an end to the pride of the arrogant, and humble the haughtiness of tyrants. I will make people scatter. I will make people I will make people scarcer than fine gold, and men than gold of Ophir. Therefore shall heavens be shaken, and earth leap out of its place at the fury of our Father in heaven of hosts, on the day of his burning wrath. Then like gazelles that are chased, and like sheep that no man gathers, each man shall turn back to his people. They shall flee every one to his land. All who remain shall be pierced through. All who are caught shall fall by the sword, and their babes shall be dashed to pieces in their sight. Their homes shall be plundered, and their wives shall be raped. Behold, I stir up the Medes against them, who do not value silver or delight in gold. Their bows shall shatter the young. They shall show no pity to infants. They shall not spare the children. And Babylon, glory of kingdoms, proud splendor of the Chaldeans, shall become like Sodom and Gomorrah, overturned by Elohim. Nevermore shall it be settled, nor dwell in through all the ages. Nor a rab shall pitch his tent there, no shepherds make flocks lie down there, but beasts shall lie down there, and the houses be filled with owls. There shall ostriches make their home, and there shall satyrs dance, and jackals shall abide in its castles, and dragons in the palaces. A pleasure. Her hour is close at hand. Her days will not be long. But our Father in heaven will pardon Jacob, and will again choose Israel, and will settle them on their own soil. And strangers shall join them, and shall cleave to the house of Jacob. For peoples shall take them and bring them to their homeland. And the house of Israel shall possess them as slaves and handmaids on the soil of our Father in heaven. They shall be captives of their captors, and masters to their taskmasters. And when our Father in heaven has given you rest from your sorrow and trouble, and from the hard service that you were made to serve, you shall recite this song of scorn over the king of Babylon. How was the taskmaster vanished? How is oppression ended? Our Father in heaven has broken the staff of the wicked, the rod of tyrants that smote peoples in wrath. With stroke unceasing that belabored nations in fury and relentless pursuit. All the earth is calm, untroubled, loudly it cheers. Even pines rejoice at your fate. And cedars of Lebanon, now that you have lain down, none shall come up to fail us. Sheol below was astir to greet your coming, rousing for you the shades of all earth's chieftains, raising from their thrones all the kings of nations. All speak up and say to you, so you have been stricken as we were. You have become like us. Your pomp is brought down to Sheol, and the strains of your lutes. Worms are to be your bed, maggots your blanket. How are you fallen from heaven, O shining one, son of dawn? How are you failed to earth, O vanquisher of nations? Once you thought in your heart, I will climb to the sky higher than the stars of Elohim. I will set my throne. I will sit in the mount of assembly on the summit of Zaphon. I will mount the back of a cloud. I will match the Most High. Whoa, this guy's talking heavy. Instead, you are brought down to Sheol. That's a fact, to the bottom of the pit. They who behold you stare. They peer at you closely. Is this the man? Is this the man who shook the earth, who made realms tremble, who made the world like a waste and wrecked its towns? Who never released his prisoners to their homes? All the kings of nations were laid, everyone in horror. All the kings of nations were laid, everyone in honor, each in his tomb, while you were left lying unburied, like loathsome Carson, like a trampled corpse. In the clothing of slain, gashed by the sword, who sink to the very stones of the pit. You shall not have a burial like them, because you destroyed your country, murdered your people. Let the breed of evildoers nevermore be named. Prepare a slaughtering block for his sons, because of the guilt of their father. Let them not arise to possess the earth. Then the world's face shall be covered with towns. I will rise up against them, declares our Father in heaven of hosts, and will wipe out from Babylon name a remnant, kith and kin, declares our Father in heaven. And I will make it a home of bitterance, pools of water. I will sweep it with a broom of extermination, declares our Father in heaven of hosts. Our Father in heaven of hosts has sworn this oath, as I have designed as I have designed, so shall it happen. What I have planned, that shall come to pass, to break Assyria in my land, to crush him on my mountain, and his yoke shall drop off them, and his burden shall drop from their backs. That is the plan that is planned for all the earth. That is why an arm is poised over all the nations. For our Father in heaven of hosts has planned. Who then can foil it? It is his arm that is poised, and who can stay it? This pronouncement was made in the year that King Ahaz died. Rejoice not, all Philistia, because the staff of him that beat you was broken. For from the stock of a snake there sprouts an asp, a flying seraph branches out from it. The firstborn of the poor shall graze, and the destitute lie down secure. I will kill your stock by famine, and it shall slay the very last of you. Howl, O gate, cry out, O city, quake, all Philistia, for a stout one is coming from the north, and there is no straggler in his ranks. And what will he answer the messengers of any nation? Okay, and what will he answer the messengers of any nation? That Zion has been established by our Father in heaven. In it, the needy of his people shall find shelter. The Moab pronouncement. In the night Ar was sacked, Moab was ruined. In the night Kir was sacked, Moab was ruined. He went up to the temple to weep. The bond went to the outer shrines over Nebo and Medeba. Moab is wailing, on every head is baldness. Every beard is shorn. In its streets they are girt with sackcloth. On its roofs and in its squares everyone is wailing, streaming with tears. Heshbon and Eliale cry out, their voice carries to Jahaz. Therefore the shock troops of Moab shout, his body is convulsed. My heart cries out for Moab, his beauty just flee down to Zoar. To Eglath, Shalishah, for the accent of Luhith, they ascend with weeping. On the road to Haranaim, they raise a cry of anguish. Out the waters of Nimrim are become a desolation. The grass is seared, the herbage is gone, vegetation is vanished. Therefore the gains they have made and their stores they carry to the Wadi of Willows. The cry has compassed the country of Moab all the way to Eglaim, her wailing, even at Bir Halim, her wailing. The waters of Daman are full of blood, for I pour added water on Daman. I drench it for Moab's refugees with soil for its remnant. Dispatch as messenger the ruler of the land from Selah in the wilderness to the Mount of fair Zion. Like fugitive birds, like nestlings driven away, Moab's villagers linger by the fords of the Arnon. Give advice, offer counsel at high noon. Make your shadow like night. Conceal the outcasts, betray not the fugitives. Let Moab's outcasts find Asalam in you. Asalam in you be a shelter for them against the despoiler. For violence has vanished, rapine is ended, and murderers have perished from this land. And the throne shall be established in goodness in the tent of Dawit, and on it shall sit in faithfulness a ruler devoted to justice and zealous for equity. We have heard of Moab's pride. Most haughty is he of his pride and haughtiness and arrogance, and of the iniquity in him. And let Moab howl, let all in Moab howl. For the raisin cakes of Kir Hareseth, you shall moan most pitifully. The vineyards of Heshbon are withered, and the vines of Sibmah, their tendrils spread to Baal Goim, and reach to Jazer, and straight to the desert. Their shoots spread out and cross the sea. Therefore, as I weep for Jazer, so I weep for Sibmah's vines. O Heshbon and Eliele. And Elele, I drench you with my tears. Ended are the shouts over your fig and grain harvests. Rejoicing and gladness are gone from the farmland. In the vineyards, no shouting or cheering is heard. No more does the treader tread wine in the presses. The shouts have been silenced. Therefore, like a lyre, my heart moans for Moab, and my very soul for Kir Hares. And when it has become apparent that Moab has gained nothing in the outdoor shrine, he shall come to pray in his temple, but to no avail. That is the word that our Father in heaven spoke concerning Moab long ago, and now our Father in heaven has spoken in 3 years, fixed like the years of a hired laborer. Moab's population with all its huge multitude shall shrink. Only a remnant shall be left of no conscience. The Damascus pronouncement. Behold, Damascus shall cease to be a city, it shall become a heap of ruins. The towns of Aroer shall be deserted. They shall be a place for flocks to lie down with none disturbing. Fortresses shall cease from Ephraim, and sovereignty from Damascus. The remnant of Aram shall become like the massive Israelites, declares our Father in heaven of hosts. In that day the mass of Jacob shall dwindle, and the fatness of his body become lean. After being like the standing grain harvested by the reaper who reaps ears by the armful, he shall be like the ears that are gleaned in the valley of Rephaim. Only gleaning shall be left of him, as when one beats an olive tree. 2 berries or 3 on the top most branch, 4 or 5 on the boughs of the crown, declares our Father in heaven, the Elohim of Israel. And in that day men shall turn their maker, their eyes look to the Holy One of Israel. They shall not turn to the altars that their own hands make, made or look to the sacred post, and instead stands that their own fingers wrought. In that day the fortresses, I'm sorry if you can't hear me. In that day their fortress city shall be like the deserted sites which the Horesh and the Amir abandoned. I'm sorry if you can't hear me. I might have to just stop the video. May our Father, Messiah, and Spirit be with us. I pray you all are well. Pray you guys can hear what you could hear, and if he's coming down, I'm going to continue reading. In that day, the fortress city shall be like the deserted sites, which the Horesh and the Amir abandoned because of the Israelites, and there shall be desolation. Hold on. Truly you have forgotten the Elohim who saved you, and have not remembered the rock who sheltered you. That is why, though you plant a delightful sapling, what you sow proves a disappointing slip. On the day that you plant, you see it grow. On the morning you sow, you see it bud, but the branches wither away. On a day of sickness, a mortal agony, and the roar of many peoples, that roar as roars the sea, the rage of nations that rage as rage the mighty waters, nations raging like massive waters, but he shouts at them and they flee far away, driven like chaff before winds in the hills, and like tumbleweed before a gale at eventide, low terror, by morning it is no more. Such is the lot of our despoilers, the portion of them that plunder us. Ah, land in the deep shadow of wings beyond the rivers of Nubia, go swift messengers to a nation far and remote, to a people thrust forth and away, a nation of gibber and chatter, whose land is cut off by streams, which sends out envoys by sea, and purpose vessels upon the water. Say this, all you who live in the world and inhabit the earth, when a flag is raised in the hills, take note. When a ram's horn is blown, give heed. For thus our Father in heaven said to me, I rest calm and confident in my habitation, like a scorching heat upon sprouts, like a rain cloud in the heat of reaping time. For before the harvest, yet after the budding, when the blossom has hardened into berries, he will trim away the twigs with pruning hooks, and loop off the trailing branches. They shall all be left to the kites of the hills, and to the beasts of the earth. The kite shall summer on them, and all the beasts of the earth shall winter on them. In that time, tribute shall be brought to our Father in heaven of hosts, from a people far and remote, from a people thrust forth and away, a nation of gibber and chatter, whose land is cut off by streams. At the place where the name of our Father in heaven of hosts abides at Mount Zion, the Mitzrayim pronouncement, the Egypt pronouncement, mounted on a swift cloud, our Father in heaven will come to Egypt. Egypt's idols shall tremble before him, and the heart of the Egyptian shall sink within them. I will incite Egyptian against Egyptian. They shall war with each other, every man with his fellow, city with city, and kingdom with kingdom. Egypt shall be drained of spirit, and I will confound its plains. So they will consult the idols and the shades and the ghosts and the familiar spirits, and I will place the Egyptians at the mercy of a harsh master, and a ruler's king shall rule them, declares the sovereign, our Father in heaven of hosts. Water shall fail from the seas, rivers dry up and be parched, channels turn foul as they ebb, and Egypt's canals run dry. Reed and rush shall decay, and the Nile purpose by the Nile side, and everything sown by the Nile shall wither, blow away, and vanish. The fishermen shall lament. All who cast lines in the Nile shall mourn, and those who spread nets on the water shall languish. The flax workers too shall be dismayed, both garters and weavers chagrin. Her foundation shall be crushed, and all who make dams shall be despondent, utter fools. All the nobles of Tanis, the sages of Pharaoh's advisors, have made absurd predictions. How can you say to Pharaoh, I'm a scion of sages, a scion of Kedemite kings? Where indeed are your sages? Let them tell you, let them discover what our Father in heaven of hosts has planned against Egypt. The nobles of Tanis have been fools. The nobles of Memphis deluded. Egypt has been led astray. Egypt has been led astray by the chiefs of her tribes. Our Father in heaven has mixed within her a spirit of distortion, which shall lead Egypt astray in all her undertakings. As a vomiting drunkard goes astray, nothing shall be achieved in Mitzrayim by either head or tail, palm branch or reed. In that day, the Egyptians shall be like women, trembling and terrified, because our Father in heaven of hosts will raise his hand against them. In the land of Jehudah shall also be the dread of the Egyptians. They shall quake whenever anybody mentions it to them, because of what our Father in heaven of hosts is planning against them. In that day, there shall be several towns in the land of Egypt speaking the language of Canaan and swearing loyalty to our Father in heaven of hosts. One shall be called town of Perez. In that day, there shall be an altar to our Father in heaven inside the land of Mitzrayim, and a pillar to our Father in heaven at its border. They shall serve as a symbol and a reminder of our Father in heaven of hosts in the land of Mitzrayim, so that with the Egyptians, so that when the Egyptians cry out to our Father in heaven against oppressors, he will send them a savior and a champion to deliver them. For our Father in heaven will make himself known to the Egyptians, and the Egyptians shall acknowledge our Father in heaven in that day. And they shall serve him with sacrifice and oblation, and shall make vows to our Father in heaven and fulfill them. Our Father in heaven will first afflict and then heal the Egyptians. When they turn back to our Father in heaven, he will respond to their entreaties and heal them. In that day there shall be a highway from Egypt to Assyria. The Assyrians shall join with the Egyptians, and the Egyptians with the Assyrians, and then the Egyptians together with the Assyrians shall serve our Father in heaven. In that day Israel shall be a third partner with Egypt and Assyria as a blessing on earth. For our Father in heaven of hosts will bless them, saying, Blessed be my people, Egypt, my handiwork, Assyria, and my very own Israel. It was that year that the Tartan came to Ashdod, being sent by King Sargon of Assyria, and attacked Ashdod and took it. Previously, our Father in heaven had spoken to Isaiah, son of Amoz, saying, Go, untie the sackcloth from your loins and take your sandals off your feet, which he had done, going naked and barefoot. And now our Father in heaven said, It is a sign and a portent for Egypt and Nubia. Just as my servant Isaiah has gone naked and barefoot for 3 years, so shall the king of Assyria drive off the captives of Egypt and the exiles of Nubia, young and old, naked and barefoot, with bared buttocks, to the shame of Egypt. And they shall be dismayed and tangerine, because of Nubia their hope, and in Egypt their boast. In that day the dwellers of this coastland shall say, if this could happen to those we look to whom we fled for help and rescue from the king of Assyria, how can we ourselves escape? Amen. God, Father, and Son, and Spirit, with us, I pray you all are well. Amen.